Good morning, my friends. I don't usually do Friday broadcasts, Friday trainings, but lately I have because it's kind of like when I do the random bits kind of thingy. And so today is more random bits from me. If you're new to me, I'm Burtcher and I help codependents rediscover happiness after narcissistic abuse by healing the trauma bond so that they can go on and create happy relationships and live a life that they enjoy based on who they are. That is what I do. And before we get to today's just thoughts that have been pondering in my mind for the last couple days, because that's what Random Bits is about. I need to share this out to the community real quick. The community is your safe haven here on the internet, where you can find shelter and understanding, guidance, tools, and a safe place to heal and grow. The link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube, and the name is the Thriving Beyond Codependency Community if you Facebook search it or Google it. So you're welcome to join there. Be happy to have you. Join over 3,100 of us doing this journey together. So, random bits, capacity, boundaries, and consent. So, I've been playing with this idea of capacity for a little while. Especially as I've been doing work and developing tools and trainings around attachment, especially for the Heal Yourself strategy and the relationship strategy. Those are key components to relating with ourselves, to regulating attachment distress, to making things feel safer in our world so that we can heal and then building safe, secure bonds with other people. And capacity is this idea of having so much, like let's see, it's like a cup. So you got a small cup, got a big cup, and capacity is how much you can how much space you have for something. Now, intrinsic to capacity is limits. Like the cup can only hold so much, right? Another concept in our allegory people often reference is spoons. They have so many spoons to give, and that's it. This is what capacity is. It's what we can contribute, it's how much we can tolerate, and it's what our maximum limit is. And in codependency, we tend to, there's a number of things we do with capacity in the world, but in codependency, we tend to not even know we have a capacity. We tend to think that our limitations are wrong, bad. They should be like, you should get rid of them, should change them, should ignore them. And this leads to burnout. This leads to pain. This leads to what's called undue tolerance, where we're tolerating things that are actually harmful to us, that we should be intolerant of. We should be leaving. We should be we should leave it, or we should do something in which ends the exposure to that thing, or we should not play with it, that kind of thing. Capacity in the form of respect is what a boundary is. I have a limit. I can only do so much. I don't have anything to give today. The other, I don't want to. Capacity is about respecting, or boundaries are about respecting capacity. It's about respecting what we have, how much of it we have, and where we want to put it. For codependence, a lot of times that's our mental energy, our emotional energy, and our physical energy. When we don't really value these things, or we don't know them, we are not tuned into them, we're attuned to somebody else's capacities, and we're not attuned to our own, we lose ourselves. We burn out. We harm ourselves. And that's why we don't understand our own boundaries. We don't understand what it is to respect ourselves and to show up in a way that loves ourselves. This is where our no's come from. I have this cliche little saying that says your happiness is on the other side of no. That comes from the premise of understanding our capacity and the boundaries that it establishes for us. So it's These random bit episodes aren't scripted, so I kind of just wander about. But it's this idea that if I'm not, there's the idea that I need to know what my capacity is, and I need to respect it rather than push past it, because we have this other element in our society, because we are a transactional society where we glorify performance. We should push our boundaries. We should go beyond our limits. We should expand. We should push the envelope, constantly breaching our own capacity, constantly violating the thing we have available to us, our own internal emotional, energetic, physical, mental boundary. So think of capacity kind of like a bus. The bus can only seat so many people, right? Now, obviously, if everybody's seated, there's still space in the bus. That doesn't necessarily mean there's capacity for things to work correctly, for things to work smoothly, for things to work in a way that is pleasurable and fulfilling. Yep, you can still stuff more people in there, and sometimes we have to because there's an emergency. But generally, if we're attuned to our bus and what's in there, it's about understanding what allows that bus and those on the bus to have an enjoyable, safe, fulfilling experience. That means understanding the limits of our capacity. It means understanding how much space we need in our cup in order to feel secure, in order to feel energized, in order to show up as ourselves and do our lives. Because if we go back to the cup analogy, the way we build capacity isn't by making a bigger cup. It's by emptying what's in the cup. It's by removing things from the cup that builds capacity. Because building capacity is really about restoring it. It's about making space where there is not space by removing something. So a lot of times, in general, just not in codependency, we need to look at our lives and see what we're carrying that we don't need to be carrying anymore. That isn't what needs to be there. Is it even mine? There's so much we carry in our world that isn't ours. We carry the responsibility for other people's emotions. We carry the responsibility for their disappointment. Like I was thinking about disappointment this morning in relationship to capacity, boundaries, and consent. Because I've been working on this fear I have of this, not disappointing others, but the disappointment of others. For me, they're distinctly different, because the fear of disappointing someone is a future thought. That disappointment is more of like they are disappointed now, so now I got to deal with it. Been dealing with that, been nuancing that, because for codependent brains, hi Diane, for codependent brains, disappointment feels like a smothering effect. Like, okay, I can't be me, I've got to please you. I have to regulate you now. That's really what's going on in the background. There's a fawn response, a little freeze that comes in with that startles us, and now we gotta figure that out. And usually that's because we're wandering in their yard. We're trying to do something for them. Trying to control them or show up in a specific way for them that doesn't really work for us. So that comes back to this idea of capacity. Do I need to carry their disappointment? Is there any responsibility I have to them? Now, if someone is disappointed in me and I have an agreement with them, this is where the consent component comes in, then yeah, I ought to discuss that with them. I ought to have conversation and build understanding, empathy, and accountability there. But if it's some Joe Schmo, like my example with the garbage man in the pink car, if the garbage man's disappointed about my pink car, you can go live with it. See, when we start giving away what isn't ours, just giving it back to them, leave it in their yard, return it to sender, we gain more capacity. When we stop playing the game of what if, we gain more capacity. Because what ifing is mostly anxiety thinking. Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Well, make a plan, set it aside, and then And that's kind of simplistic because anxiety has a lot of different places it comes from, and we need to be. I approach it from the angle of safety. What do I need in order to feel safer in this? And it's not about controlling someone else. It's actually about giving up control. Sounds paradoxical because a lot of times with anxiety we tend to want to control another person, place, or thing, but to build capacity so we feel safer, it's about releasing control and bringing in that respect. It's like, oh yeah, I respect that they can be upset about that, and I respect and give myself permission not to care about it. I don't have to fix it. Because 99% of the things we tend to carry around as worry is not something we can fix. It's not even something we have to worry about because a lot of times it's about what other people think or feel or would do. This is an internalized habit, what's called external orientation, where we judge and regulate ourselves based on the judgments and emotional state of other people. And so we can end that by returning to ourselves the authority that we intrinsically have over ourselves. We are our authority. We stay in our yard. We let them be in their yard. And if there's a concern they have, they can communicate it and we can respond to it. But in no way are we responsible for changing how they feel or making them feel a certain way. Instead, we're responsible for understanding what we need, what we want, and making commitments and agreements that show up in a way that has integrity to who we want to be. And then we have some accountability, but again, their feelings about how we behave are theirs to regulate. We can empathize with it, we let them do it. The less we're involved in regulating other people's capacities, the more involved we are in our own. The more we can respect our own boundary. The more we can gain our own consent. Because a lot of times with codependence, we empty ourselves. We just pour ourselves into that other person's yard and try to do things because over there that would make us feel better. What we need to do is start respecting our own capacity and then start building relationships and agreements and territory that allows us to feel safe being our autonomous individual self. That's where we find our peace. That's where we find our power. That's where we find expansion and relief in our world. And it really starts with capacity. It starts with respect for capacity because you're a limited being. You're a limited human being, rather. And you got limits. And those limits actually are very useful. They're very important because they guide you. They inform you. They give you direction as to what to focus on in your world. They're a source of happiness. They're a source of well-being because it's like maybe you're introverted like me, so highly extroverted things all the time are not going to be very much fun for you. Maybe the cultivation of space and silence for yourself brings brilliance to the table for you. It's what it does for me. See, when we start to respect and value our limits and capacities, we can find out the brilliance that comes in with them. They aren't something that has to be or needs to be changed. They are something that needs to be respected, needs to be understood, maybe even a little bit valued and trusted to just see what they would do. So that's my random bits today. How are you showing up in your capacity? How am I showing up in mine? What do I need to change so I have more capacity and I can then respect the boundaries those capacities establish for me and have more consent with myself about where and how I apply my capacity. So a lot of times we're violating our own consent. Like, I didn't ask my body to do this if it wanted to. Well, I didn't check in with myself to see if I wanted to do this thing. We're not getting our own respect, our own capacity. Instead, we're just shoveling it out to everybody else. Let's see. So Zara says, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Kaya says, capacity is fascinating and foreign to me. It's an area where I need to learn more about myself. Yes, me too. And we'll be doing more. Probably this fall, I'll have a capacity course that'll be part of the Heal Yourself strategy. We can go in and work with deeper types of body regulation, like vagus nerve stimulation, somatic touch, things like that, as well as how mindset applies to regulation into capacity, and how play regulates capacity. Because a lot of times, we've been through trauma, we have unlearned to play. Play has been stunted. If we've grown up in toxic or unavailable families, or we've been in chronic relationships where play wasn't a thing of serious, where I solved the problems and all that, we're going to be stunted in play, and we're not going to be able to regulate through play. Play is a really fantastic regulator. It's probably this fall because we got so much right now, right? We got the Heal Yourself strategy and relationship strategy, and then communication deepened and attachment made safe. And I'm checking on my capacity there, but I actually have that measured out pretty well for capacity on that. So yeah, capacity is about coming back into contact with what we have and how we want to use it in a way that brings us joy, the way that respects us. So it's no longer, right, it's going to disappoint people. That's okay. They're not entitled to anything. You're not obligated to them, because all relationships build on consent and privilege. There's zero obligation and entitlement. That gives us a chance to build or to expand. Those are just not the right words. To make space for disappointment. To see what that feels like. Let it take up a little more space. Yeah. So random thoughts, random bits. All right. So go out there, discover within inside yourself where your capacity is today, and see what's loving for you. Now, loving isn't going to be getting rid of the capacity or trying to avoid what's there. It's what softens whatever's there. It's what allows rest. It's what allows cultivation and nurture to be there. That's loving. And sometimes that means saying no. Sometimes that means taking a break. Sometimes that means silence. Sitting in the shower. Sometimes it's a nice walk. Sometimes it's a game. Sometimes it's a movie. Sometimes it's going out. As COVID's out of the way, we can do more of that. But yeah, honor your capacity. Explore it. And there'll be more coming up with this, especially as we do the Get Clarity trainings and on and on. More is coming on capacity. So, okay, let's see. Sounds like it has something to do with daring to slow down and listen to oneself. Partly, yeah. I think slowing down is a wise idea in general. Performance-based systems like what we're stuck in, especially here in the United States, are going to burn you out. Everything has its limits. Those limits matter. Let's respect it. Yeah, and listening to the body. When I say listening to the self, I'm really about saying checking in with the body. What is the body feeling? How's it responding to whatever it is showing up? Like when I teach in the Know Yourself strategy, or it's been called the happiness strategy formerly, is to listen to the yes impulse, the no impulse. Does my body want to do this? Do I feel a yes? Do I feel a no? Like I'm doing this because I felt a yes. It's like, I want to do this. It'll be kind of fun. It's kind of weird, but it's working. So that's a capacity check. That's where I wanted to invest some of today's social capacity. So there we go. Go ahead, run with it. Let's see what you discover. Guys, remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping, and that it's okay to be limited. That's where we find our power. That's where we find our brilliance. So be safe out there, and I will see you guys next week for our next discussion.